Ladies and gentlemen, today with me is Gino Deana, the Managing Director of Askari Metals, a multi-metal exploration company based in Australia at the ASX. Gino, it's good to have you here. It's been a long time.
Yeah, and thank you so much for hosting me. You're right, it has been a long time, but it's a pleasure to engage with you again and with your investor base also.
Great, great. And I think we should definitely start by giving an overall outlook. I mean, maybe we could just touch base on the market in general. Talking about junior mining stocks, especially in Australia, pretty much everything has come down in the share price. So has Askari as well. What is your feeling about the general junior mining sector, especially for ASX listed companies? Do you think we have already reached the bottom, and do you think it can only go up from this point? Or what do you think concerning the general market?
Yeah, so I think the last 12 months particularly has been pretty challenging for those like us, like Askari, being in the junior mining space. Certainly those especially exposed to lithium have seen quite a sharp decline in underlying spodumene concentrate prices, which is obviously flown not only to the exploration side of things, but also affecting the producers and the downstream chemicals producers as well. So I do think that on the basis of what we've seen most recently in the last 2-3 weeks, we're seeing what I would call the bottom of that lithium price downtrend, and we're seeing a point of inflection now. So a lot more interest is certainly coming back into that lithium space, which is obviously beneficial for us as a junior explorer. I was at the 121 conference at Indaba at the beginning of February, and my meetings there were very much focused in terms of strategic investors and those looking to get an entry point into de-risked assets and earlier stage investment opportunities as well. And one of the, I suppose, very clear points that was demonstrated during those meetings was the fact that investors understand the strong thematic for lithium and the requirements for lithium going forward, very, very strong foundation centered around this whole concept of decarbonization. And for a company such as Askari, we offer a de-risked asset position within the OIS project in Namibia. So really, it's more of a case for investors to take a view on lithium's got a very strong future, take a view on de-risked assets such as Askari's OIS project, and take a view on your investment horizon. So I certainly like to believe that we're at the point of change now. As you mentioned, stock prices have been somewhat hammered in the last 12 months, and most recently as well, markets have sort of given us very challenging conditions to deal with. But at the same time, as I mentioned, we're starting to see a lot more interest being shown back into that junior sector as well, which is benefiting everybody that's exposed to this industry.
Absolutely. And I think it's fair to say the mining sector, especially the juniors, it's an up and down, right? I mean, if you have a look at Askari's share price for the last 3 years, we've had two major ups. Now we're on a downtrend again. And I think, well, maybe we can go for another up again. And I'm really looking forward about hearing more today what your plans are to bring the share price up again. And I think we should definitely start by talking about your newest acquisition, your uranium project. We talked about lithium. The price has sharply corrected, but on the other hand, uranium went pretty much straight up, which was expectable, to be fair. But, engaged the uranium space with a new project. Tell us a little bit more about the project. Why have you acquired it? What are your goals? What are your expectations?
Yeah, so Jan, the Matamunga uranium project that's in southern Tanzania, and I mean our thesis for investing in these projects and our desire to promote ourselves as that Southern African clean energy exploration company is really the reason as to why we expanded our footprint. Not only now have we got lithium as part of our clean energy mandate in Namibia, but we're also adding what we call in-demand uranium assets in Tanzania to the portfolio as well. The benefit that we've got with respect to southern Tanzania is that whilst the investment opportunity is new for Askari, Clifford Fitzhenry, who's our Chief Exploration and Project Manager, prior to joining Askari, has actually been evaluating and identifying these uranium assets for near on 3.5 years. He's built up a strong network within Tanzania, within local Tanzanian partners that have got the right level of connections at all streams of mining, as well as political reach as well. And that's really enabling the company to get sort of more of a distinct first mover advantage into some of these projects. Now, For us, Matamunga is the first acquisition of many. We're currently evaluating 3 other targeted project areas as well. And we look at this particular area as being in a really strong and emerging tier 1 uranium province. So if you're familiar with obviously what happened with Fukushima in 2011, a lot of these assets really just stayed kind of stuck in time. But you had some very strong successes such as Mantra Resources and the Nayote uranium deposit, which got sold to Uranium and Arms, Uranium One, sorry, in Arms for nearly $1.2 billion. So you've got some very significant world-class assets that have been developed in that same region. That asset in particular sits no more than 70 kilometers northeast of where we are at Matamunga. But really, and I just want to share an image on the screen, if I may, just to illustrate the point more clearly as well. Sorry, bear with me whilst I bring it up.
Sorry.
Yeah, so what I've put on screen just now is the radiometric targeting exercise that was done by Uranex and also what was done prior to Uranex with Western Metals as well. And what you can identify here is a significant span of radiometric anomalies measuring 10 kilometers by 6 kilometers. So very significant. And that's what really drove our thesis to investing at Matamunga. A lot of the time was also spent by Western Metals and Uranex at Lukuyu North and Lukuyu South. And the predominant reason for that is because a small resource already existed there, nearly 5 million pounds. So the company at the time, Uranex, which owned those projects, focused a lot on the exploration potential of those 2 particular areas. So not a lot of work was done at Matavi North or Matavi South and indeed at Matamunga. Now, what that means is that obviously when Fukushima happened, as I mentioned before, a lot of these project areas remained kind of stuck in time and no modern exploration techniques had been undertaken to really develop the assets further. There are 8 historic pits that exist at Matamunga, which the company's currently following up. And our understanding of the project is that much the same as what's been identified at Lukuyu North and Lukuyu South, we're targeting these paleochannel drainage systems, your typical sandstone-hosted uranium deposits. So we're expecting Matamunga license to be granted in the next 2 weeks. And from there, the company will then be able to mobilize its team into the field and conduct the initial exploration. So the initial exploration will be a combination of opening up some of those old historic pits and digging some new trench lines to do some more broader scale sampling, as well as undertaking some scintillometer sampling, which is going to just help us to define those higher grade areas along this radiometric corridor. The focus from there is really just to graduate these targets into drill ready opportunities as well. Now, for us, it's been really important, sort of the ability for us to actually own the old historic data has given us a strong strategic advantage in terms of where to take the projects forward and how to best attack them as well. One of the things that I also mentioned, Jan, during my conversations with shareholders as well, is, as I mentioned, with Cliff, it's not something that's been done as a reactive investment for Askari. So Askari has been very active in looking at other opportunities in Southern Africa. Uranium has been something that's been sort of very close to an investment thesis opportunity for us for some time. And with Cliff's background, we've been able to seize an opportunity which has been readily identified and evaluated over a number of years. But also what's most important is that it's non-dilutionary. These acquisitions are non-dilutionary to the company. So rather than having to enter into an agreement to acquire an asset from a third-party vendor, between Cliff and our 2 Tanzanian local partners, we're actually able to directly engage with government at different levels and apply directly for the assets and be granted these licenses. So we're obviously at a much stronger cost advantage compared to other operators in the region. And then, of course, doubling up with that is the ability to actually take ownership of the historic exploration data, which gives us a stronger understanding and a benefit in terms of taking the projects through to the next level as well. The other thing that I wanted to mention as well is just the fact that these assets in Tanzania are complementary to what we are doing in OIS on the lithium side as well. I mentioned before earlier that obviously our focus is Southern African clean energy, and that's our mandate. And now, given that we've spent considerable time investing in infrastructure in Africa, and that's by way of having a strong in-country team in Namibia plus a strong country team in Africa more broadly. It means that we can actually split our team across Tanzania and across Namibia to make sure that we can actively explore both projects and prioritize both areas equally as well. So obviously that's something that's very important. There's no additional operational strain placed within the company as well, which I think is very important for shareholders to take note of, as well as it means that the company's not having to worry about more expensive exploration teams being built and sought, so forth.
Okay, thank you very much for introducing us to your uranium project. I think it sounds pretty good. Have a little bit of historical work which has laid down because of Fukushima in 2011, and now you're taking on the project basically again, trying to be there with new modern ways to explore the project, and I'm really looking forward to your first results. What do you think? When can we expect a little bit of a feeling what's going on with the project? Will it take years? Will it take months? When can we expect the first results?
No, so the expectation is that the grant of Madamunga will take place between the 10th and the 12th of March. So let's just call that 2 weeks from today. And shortly thereafter, we'll mobilise our first team into the field. So I think from a results-driven point of view, we can expect results coming through from Madamunga towards the end of March initially, and certainly through April. As I indicated earlier, like the advantage for us is that we've got the infrastructure in place, and we've got the team in place already to mobilise quite quickly into the field. Certainly our focus is going to be revisiting some of those old exploration pits, opening those up again, as well as looking at new trench lines and graduating those through into a drill projects or drill ready targets. Drilling at Madamunga, I would, at this point in time, I'd say that by the middle of this year, we'd be ready to be drilling there as well. So we're talking very, very quick, immediate, low cost, high impact exploration campaigns, and that's the strategic thesis of the company.
All right, Gino, thank you very much. So you now have a new project in Tanzania. You already had a project, the lithium project, which is in Africa as well. You said you're going to acquire a few more projects. You talked about 3 that are already in the pipeline, also in Africa. So to me, it sounds a little bit more like a shift now. You used to have a lot of assets in Australia, especially your lithium project. What can we expect from these projects? Are you making a total shift? Will you still be active in Australia as well? Tell us more about that, please.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So the idea for the company, and this is something that we've been communicating with shareholders for some time about as well now, is still this concept of spinning out those Australian-based assets to create a separate vehicle which will be able to then be funded and focused on those Australian assets. We see tremendous potential in not only our gold and copper projects, but also the significant landholding that we've built in the Eastern Pilbara area as well. Now, from our perspective, and being that we're a junior company, I think focus and criticality of capital allocation is very important. And so the company, as in Askari, has made a decision that let's focus on building our African portfolio. Let's focus on building what we view as being the lowest risk pathway to generating enhanced shareholder returns. And let's enable another company to be properly funded and properly resourced from a team perspective to explore those Australian assets. So that's certainly what we're still focused on. We've got a submission which we'll be drafting and submitting to our stock exchange in the coming weeks, and then that's going to lay the foundation for being able to inform our shareholders as to what that structure looks like for the spin out as well. So it's something that we take the view that Askari will be able to be a much more cleaner company from a strategic perspective, and it'll also mean that those Australian assets get properly funded and properly explored as well. So certainly the work that we have done on those Australian assets in the lead up to the decision to commence those discussions with the ASX and the spin out strategic discussions has given us a great foundation for where those projects have been able to be developed towards. And I mean, we've got some great results that are coming out at Red Peak, which is rare earths focused as well. Those results will be due out imminently. We've got our gold resource at Burracoppin with an exploration target. That result also will be due out imminently. And we've also been quite busy in terms of just expanding our footprint at some of these key projects as well to make sure that we've got critical scale also. I think it's really important for shareholders to understand that, given sort of the size of the company, it's obviously important for us to make sure that we are able to resource our projects adequately as well. And we see that shareholders will be able to benefit, of course, from the spin out, not only through a priority entitlement offer, but potentially through an in-specie distribution as well of whatever consideration shares are paid out through to Askari as well.
All right, that's good to know. Thank you, Gino. And I think one of the main ways to increase the shareholder value at the moment, it's not just a spin out, it's not just a new project that you just acquired, but your main project, your flagship project is, I believe, the UIS lithium project. And I think you've done tremendous exploration work over there. Can you give us a little bit of an insight? What's going on at UIS? Do we do drilling at the moment? Will we have results pretty soon? Is there anything to drive really the share price from the UIS perspective, from your perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, UIS for us has been a standout project from the point of view that we started serious exploration work there roughly 12 months ago. And we've built up a significant database of knowledge and information with respect to the project and those pegmatites as well. And one of the things that we made a discovery of quite early into the exploration phases was that corridor of interest, that 15-kilometer long corridor by 5-kilometer wide, where we viewed a lot of the LCT type pegmatites were located. And what we've also learned, of course, is that these things are very structurally controlled. So there's a number of structures that run through the project north-south that are controlling the emplacement of these pegmatites as well. And what that means for us is that we've been able to really close in on our focus, understand where those LCT-type pegmatites are, and really then address the exploration campaigns to target those pegmatites as well. Now, in December last year, we kickstarted our phase 1 trenching campaign at EPL 7345. And that was focused initially on 4 primary pegmatite targets, those being OP, PS, DP, and K9. Now, we've completed all of our trenching across those projects. We've done about 200 trenches, roughly 8,000 meters of trenching. And what we identified through that, particularly at OP, which is one that's never been drill tested, was under a thin layer of alluvium and calcrete cover. And so we trenched that particular target. And we've now mapped it for more than 2 kilometers along strike and with an average width of about 15 meters. But in the southwest part of the OP, we've got a zone which is 350 meters long by 27 meters wide. So that pegmatite, particularly at OP, it shows all the right textural components that you would expect from an LCT type pegmatite. We've seen lots of spodumene mineralization in OP. We've also seen clear definition and zonation with petalite as well as lepidolite, which is important for spodumene emplacement. And we're quickly now going to the process of getting those sample results back from the channel sampling work that's been done. And we expect those results to come through to the company by the middle of March. So by the time we reach mid-March, we should have all of our OP channel sampling results back. And from there, we've been building our 3D geological model in the background. We've been designing our drill campaign as we go. So the idea for the company is that as we progress through the balance of our assay results from K9, from DP, from PS, we continue to build this database of high confidence, very robust drill targets. So the case for us at UIS is let's focus right now, whilst we're in what I would call a lithium down cycle still. Even though we've seen some green shoots, it's still very much an uncertain type of a market. So let's focus on low-cost, high-impact exploration campaigns. And that's really where the trenching, and the channel sampling becomes critically important. Now, I've only spoken about 4 targets on 7345. There are at least half a dozen other targets on 7345 which also need to be trenched as well, and they'll fall into the phase 2 trenching campaign. In addition to that, and we haven't really spoken very much through our public releases, but 8535, which is a license to the south of B1C1, which is the Andrada, that triangular mining license that you'd be familiar with. Now, we've identified 4 very significant pegmatite targets at 8535 as well. Some very high-grade rock sample results have come out of those target areas, and we've got a new batch of assay results to come through from what we call the Kestrel target on 8535. Now, Kestrel for us is significant. It's 3 kilometers long. It's up to 100 meters wide in places. And we can see very clear evidence of zonation and fractionation of that pegmatite. So we're seeing lots of spodumene, a lot of lepidolite in placement, lots of petalite as well. So it's your typical LCT type pegmatite. We've already designed our trenching campaign across Kestrel plus 2 other targets at 8535. And we'll be looking to kickstart that phase 1 trenching at 8535 in the next week and I would say the next week or 10 days. That's going to be vitally important as well, because obviously, again, very similar to 7345, it's geared towards low-cost, high-impact exploration, building up a database of robust, high-confidence drill targets that when the company does come back out to drill, and I think drilling can happen anywhere between now and I suppose when we're comfortable with the market and with the environment. But certainly when we do come back out into drilling, we'll be looking at substantial and very meaningful drill campaigns of sort of upwards of 10,000 meters. And a lot of the conversation that's happening right now, based around sort of how we will look to attack the drilling, because obviously metallurgical studies are a key part of it as well, is potentially looking at starting off with a maiden diamond campaign as well.
All right. Thank you very much for your update. And I think let's say it again. Thank you very much, Gino, for the update. And I think one of the good things is you are a junior mining exploration company, and you already have a lot of potential projects which could be pretty critical to the company, which could be pretty beneficial for the shareholders as well. And it sounds like you really have a plan for each and every of your projects. But in the end, there's one last question, which we obviously have to bring up. If we have a look at your latest balance sheet, which was released a couple of months ago, or a couple of weeks ago, we can see you still have money, you're still funded, but will it be enough for everything you just said, or is there any way to get more money into the company to continue exploration? What are your plans going forward with respect to the shareholders as well?
Yeah, so good question, and running parallel with your exploration campaigns, and as well running in tandem with the discussions we're having with the ASX around the spin out of those Australian assets. We are looking at rationalising some of those projects as well, and having some open discussions at the moment with parties that are showing interest over either a direct acquisition of the assets or a JV/farm into some of the projects as well. So that's a mechanism by which the company can obviously lock up some non-dilutionary capital and then use those monies to obviously advance our exploration efforts and plans at OIS and at Manamunga as well. Now, of course, one of the things that the company has to be mindful of as well is just the need to make sure that we are adequately funded. And so to be able to achieve those objectives and achieve the momentum that we're looking to implement from an exploration standpoint, an equity capital raise will be inevitable, but it's something that we're looking to obviously address once the share prices has started to recover, and once we've been able to message some of this good news into the market as well. We're all very mindful of the direct impact of dilution. So one of the conversations as well that we're obviously having is with Huayou Cobalt, that they are a strategic investor, obviously invest on the basis of the OIS project. We've hosted them at site now 3 separate occasions. They were out there most recently in November last year. They've been to site looking at all the trenching. They've been avidly focused and following the assay results as they flow through from the work that's been done at OP and the other pegmatite targets at 7345. So we're very close to working with them and ensuring that they're also able to participate and help us to fund the next stage of exploration, not only, as I said, not only at OIS, but also at Matamunga as well.
All right. Gino, thank you very much. Is there anything in the end that you would really like to talk about? Is there anything you would like to say to your German-speaking shareholders?
Yeah, I think just to cover off, Jan, I think really what's important is for shareholders and investors to get a bit of a gauge in terms of what news flow they have to look forward to. And we've touched on some of it during our interview, but just to recap on where we're at, obviously, lots of assay results are going to be flowing through from the work we're doing at OIS on the trenching campaign at 7345. You'll also see the trenching commence and results will flow from the work you'll be doing at 8535. The company is also going to be very active at Matamunga, as well as looking at acquiring other uranium assets in southern Tanzania. That work will necessarily sort of obviously follow through with more exploration activities and more results to flow through from there. So certainly the next 6 months of the company is going to be very busy, but the news flow is going to be very strong as well. So shareholders have got a lot to look forward into in terms of the development of those particular assets. And obviously on the backdrop of that is what those discussions are with the stock exchange with respect to the spin out of the Australian assets as well. So I think investors have got to a lot of news flow within which to sort of gauge the de-risking of the assets and obviously see the momentum within which the company is acting and moving forward with its exploration campaigns as well.
All right. Gino, thank you very much. I'm really looking forward to your news flow, which is upcoming pretty soon. And let's have another interview in a couple of weeks and see what have you already done, what you have progressed on. And yeah, I wish you the best of luck with your exploration work.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Jan. It's a pleasure being on the show.